Good morning, Rebecca Vigus, the writer whisperer, here from a very sunny South Central Kentucky. Hope everyone is well this morning. I'd like to continue yesterday's discussion of names because once you come up with a first name, your character needs a last name. I told you that I had been bouncing names off my daughter when I said, "What if I use McVannell?" McVannell was a family name. You can do this. I have lots of family names besides my own. Um, my grandmother on my father's side, her maiden name was Henderson. I can use that. My great grandmother's maiden name was Luke. I can use that. My other great grandmother, whose name was Gee. I don't know my grandma McVannell's maiden name. Um, my other great grandmother on my dad's side, her maiden name was Hudson. So yeah, if I want to pull, I can go back in the family tree and pull names. It's not hard to do. So you need a name that matches something that goes together. So I have a character in a book that I'm working on. It's a Western, which is something I totally have never done. So I have to do some research to make sure that I'm authentic for the time. And the character's first name is Chance. I don't have a last name for him yet. In fact, all I have is the beginning where he walks into the saloon, surveys the area, picks a table where he can see the whole room and the door, those swinging doors who would come in. And he sits down and he tips his hat down over his eyes so he can see, but you really don't get to see him. At this point, all I know is his name is Chance. In book 4 of Macy McVannell, Something Borrowed, Something Blue, the governor's daughter is Marnie Ansell, Ancell. My granddaughter came up with the name. She just liked it. She liked the name Marnie. So we went with that. And so we had Governor Ansell. And I don't know that the governor had a first name because they always called him governor. But his wife did. Her name was Celie. Celee. Celie. It wasn't short for Cecilia or anything like that. It was just Celie. I have rarely used a friend's name in a book or a family member's for that matter, other than last names. I did use a friend's name once, um, inadvertently. It was not meant to be that I pulled her name out and plugged her in, but I did. And although she hoped she was not like the character I wrote, she loved the fact that her name was in the book. How do you pick names? Well, baby names on the computer, Google it. First names for boys or girls. Don't get exotic. Please don't get exotic. I had a friend who was teaching, doing her student teaching in a third grade classroom. And she looked at this name and said, I'm in trouble already. So when it came time to call on this person, she said, person's last name is, and gave that because it was something very simple. However, when it came to the first name, she said, I'm afraid I would pronounce this wrong. And the little boy stood up and said, it's Shafid. And she said, thank you, Shafid. I'll remember that. And how was Shafid spelled? Shithead. Who on earth would do this to a child? Because you know there's going to be a lot of teasing with him growing up with that name spelled that way. But parents do crazy things. It's very hard for me to read if it's not fantasy, totally weird names. They don't do anything for me. I read David Baldacci's fantasy YA fantasy series. Starts with The Finisher. And his main character is Vega Jane. Vega Jane, Jane. It was simple to pronounce. It was different, but it was not so out there that I couldn't grasp who she was and what she stood for. She was someone who questioned everything in a world where questions were not allowed. You weren't supposed to question anything. And her home, Wormwood, was surrounded by the quag. I didn't even question what the quag was. And I knew there were monsters in the quag. So, yeah, the monsters had weird names. Not a problem. This was fantasy. But it gave the people in this fantasy first and last names. Imagine that. Fantasy. First and last names. So when you're picking last names, go to Google. Uncle Google is your friend. Use him. That's what he's there for. Google surnames. Now, don't get carried away with those either. I have a friend that if you put some weird name together, will not ever read your book. She wants simple, straightforward names. I have a book start in which the main character is Lancelot Romeo Blackthorn. Because his mother was into Camelot and Romeo and Juliet. What does he go by? He goes by Lance. What does the book have to do with? Embezzlement. As it opens, he's pacing because he can't find his partner. His partner, who's been his best friend since college, is missing. And his wife is 7 months pregnant. And she can't find him either. Oh, wait. And there's a whole bunch of money missing. Now, if I would just find the time to sit down and write the rest of the story, it'd be great. It's booked for one of those years from 2023 to 2029. I can't tell you at this point exactly what year it is, but I do have a 5-year writing plan. And I'm always coming up with story starts. So if I give you a writing prompt and one of them really zings with you, hang on to it because someday it may be a novel. Someday you might want to actually write it. I have a story start with the title Trampled. And a police officer is called to a scene in a park where the ground looks trampled and there are blood drops. And while he talks to the person who called, his partner goes along the river farther and he gets a text message saying, call the crime scene. Text. Because he's found something and they have a crime. What he's found is a young girl half in, half out of the water, but she looks like she's been trampled by a horse, which makes it even more mysterious because they didn't see hoof prints in the initial area, just blood. So, what can you find? Find a name, put it together, first and last. Create your character. Go to the coffee shop or wherever you have breakfast in the morning, if you're not eating at home, and take a pad of paper. Watch the people. If you find someone that's somewhat intriguing or um, they kind of pique your interest, start writing. I did that. I did that for Secrets, as a matter of fact. Not only was Miss Emily Meek someone across a restaurant from me, Buck Wise was someone who walked in while I was having breakfast one morning. And I told him I'd be gone by the lunch rush. And it was probably about 11:30. And I had found it, the busboy was different, intriguing in a different sort of way. And I had described him and given him a name and a birth date and used him being a busboy as the job. Um, and I thought, I may or may not use him. I don't even know where the description is right now. So most likely he will not get used. But two gentlemen came in to have lunch at about 11:30, and one of them stood up and I thought, "Oh man, he's the perfect cop." And I started writing his description. And I gave him a name and I gave him a birth date based on where I guessed his age would be. And they didn't stay long, just had sandwiches and coffee or something. The first one walked out, and the first guy was a cop. And I'm going, imagine that, undercover. Because it was not, neither one of them were in uniform. Second guy comes by, and I'm going, two cops. Probably detectives. They were plainclothes. So not only had I found the guy I wanted to be the cop in my story, but now I had a full description of him. So it's very different. It is very different. You can find people anywhere. You could be mall walking or sitting on a bench waiting for your significant other to come from what they're looking at and join you. Or if you're with a girlfriend, and she's looking at something and you're not really interested and you say, I'll be out on the bench, you know, that kind of thing. Watch the people. Definitely watch the people because you never know when you might see someone who is the character you're looking for. Describe what they're wearing, give them an age. What are they doing at the time? Maybe that's not their job, but what are they doing? Are they just mall walking? That's one thing. Are they mall security? Are they running late? And you see them moving really briskly through the mall trying to get to where they're going. Mall walking is usually done from 7:30 in the morning until 9 when the mall opens. I know I've done it. And there are interesting people as you walk. Some will chat with you if you're about the same pace, some will not. It's neither here nor there. You're there to walk. I put in headphones, so I'm not there really to chat, but I will if someone talks to me. And you do your laps around the mall, however many you figure you need to do. I think I did 5 or 6 laps around the mall. And I watched the people. I watched it as those came into the stores and ducked under that halfway screen that comes down, um, so that they could get in and get to be where they needed to be on time. Um, I watched them as they were getting ready. Sometimes I didn't walk until 8 or 8:30, and then I would walk until about 10. You can still walk when people are there. It's just more congested, and so you have to adjust your pace. But mall walking is done everywhere. There are mall walking clubs. And there are discounts for mall walkers. So, watch people wherever you are. Restaurants, shopping, the grocery store, the mall, any place where you can watch people, a park, the beach. By watching people, I don't mean that you're like this staring at them. Heaven forbid. You're not trying to scare them away. You're just watching to see how they interact. I had a friend who said it's really fun to take strangers and create a history for them. And I never thought about that, but she's actually writing in her head. And she does that. Wherever she's at, she'll pick someone and give them a history. Wow, that's cool. Names. I have some more of the by any other name. I put the prompt underneath, along with where to find me if you have a question. You can always ask them in the comments, even on the replay. I do come back and look. Okay, today's prompts are secretly my name is. I'm not telling. Write about a woman named Tomorrow. She locked his name in her deepest cabinet. This is after Stanley Kunitz. The name of the place was, oh, wait, you have a name of a place? That could be your setting. The sound of the wild calling my name. Wild what? What does it sound like? They call him Catfish. If my name were, you finish that one. This is the name I can never speak. You can call me Please don't put Mr. Tibbs. And finally, this is the name my grandmother called me. Personally, I can't think that she called me anything other than Becky. But I could be wrong, she might have, and I just don't remember. And some grandparents do have nicknames for their grandkids that are strictly between the grandchild and them. My granddaughter could not say great grandmama. And so, as an 18-month-old, she would open a little photo album and she would hit the picture of my mother and point and say, "My makama, my makama." So, consequently, my grandchildren always called their great grandmother makama. And they were always going to see makama and papa. They call me granny. They called their other grandma, Grandma Cookie, because she always had cookies when they came to visit. Whether she made them or bought them didn't matter. Grandma had cookies, so she was Grandma Cookie. And for them, that's who she will always be. Names of your characters are important because they make your character the person they will be throughout your novel, your series, whatever it is. This is who your character becomes. Macy McVannell took on a life of her own after the first book. In the third book, when I added Danny Montgomery, Danny had a life of her own, but it included Macy. So it's important because your readers have to buy into your characters. And if they don't, you're not going to get a good review. And they're not going to recommend you. You definitely want good reviews. You don't want all 5-star. A 4-star won't hurt you. A 3-star won't hurt you. Anything below 3-star, and you might want to wonder about it, but don't let it upset you. And you want them to tell their friends, you got to read this book. Because if they're not telling their friends, it ends with them. It ends with them. Happy writing. I'll think of something new for tomorrow. Bye now.